Hi and good evening, everybody. Welcome to our live revision paper 2 session here with me, Ivan. I'll be your teacher for this evening. I hope you're ready for tomorrow's exam. Well, as I said, this is a revision of paper 2, and we're going to show you a few questions that might turn up and a few tricks and tips of how to get going, okay? So this is how we're going to do it for the next for the session. We're going to revise our basic exam skills. So we're looking at the questions that will give you 1, 2, maybe even 3 marks, the simple ones. Then we're going to go on to practice some more core skills and go over some misconceptions. And then we're going to analyze multi-mark questions to maximize how many marks we can get. So let's get to it, shall we? Make sure that you have a calculator with you, right? A scientific calculator is best. There are many out there, but I will be showing you a few things on a scientific calculator during this session. So other calculators are fine, but there are shortcuts that you could use with scientific calculators, okay? Make sure that you give a go to every single question. If you're struggling with pi, use 3.142, okay? Unless, of course, the question specifically tells you to do otherwise. Read each question carefully and check your answers. One thing that people tend not to do is check your answers at the end. Right then, let's get to it. These are the type of questions that you will get in the first part of your paper. Okay, very simple. This first one is a 2-marker. Use your calculator to work out the value of that. Right. Now, simply put, the only way of getting the right answer, getting the marks here, is getting the right answer. And what I'm going to do with you is show you how to use your calculator. Okay, I have a Casio one, but that doesn't mean that that is the only type of calculator out there. There are Sharps and others out there. Make sure that you do know how to use your calculator though, okay? So I've got one here, 3.8. Now, this is a number in standard index form, which is great for a scientific calculator because you've got that button there, plump, right? And you know that you're using standard index form there. It's usually at the bottom of your calculators. Some calculators may vary. So all I need to do now is put -4 in there because that was the question, and then divide by 9.5. And again, standard index form button, bloop, times 10 to the 2. So all I need to do there is put a little 2 in there. And then press the answer button. And I get 4 times 10 to the power of -7. It is a little bit hard to see on this calculator, but that does say -0.7. It will be easier on some calculators, okay? So all you need to do there is 4 times 10 to the -7. You don't have to put the 0 in front of it. -7 is just fine. Right then, expand and simplify. Now, in maths, right? Maybe in other topics, I'm not an expert in any other topics, but in maths, you can do things step by step. You don't have to do everything all in one go. And this is the first question that shows that really, because you've got 2 sections to it. The first section is these 2 pairs of brackets right there, right? You can expand those first, right? And that would give you, well, it depends on which method you're using. You could use FOIL, you can use the table. SMILE method is the same as FOIL. But what you do, 4x times 2x, which is 8x squared. Remember, you're multiplying by the x's as well. And then you've got 4x multiplied by 5, which gives you an answer of 20x. Remember the x with the 4, so you need it there. And then you've got 7. Oh, actually, it's -7. So it's going to be negative something. So -7 times 2x is -14x. And then you've got -7 times 5, so -35. Right? And you can simplify that then. Right? So it would be 8x, take away 6x. Add 6x, not even. All right, little things that could happen there. Right, so always check your answer. All right, I was lucky. I did actually check my answer very, very quickly with my eye there, and I found out what mistake I made. Right, so it becomes 8x squared, another mistake I did there. So checking once again, 8x squared plus 6x take away 35. Now I can deal with this one right here. I'm going to put the subtract in here and a bracket. Now, because it's squared, I'm multiplying it by itself. Right, so you're starting with x squared. Right, then you've got negative 6x, and then you've got positive 9. Be careful on that one, okay? Remember that when you're squaring a negative number, you do get a positive answer. Then you've got 8x squared plus 6x take away 35. Now, everything within this bracket here, you are now multiplying out by negative 1, right? So take away x squared plus 6x take away 9. That would give you, I'm going down here, 7x squared take away 12x take away 44. Therein is your answer. Question 3, 3 marks. I would, sometimes this is 2 marks. They vary from year to year, to be honest with you. Okay, so the marks is maybe to 3, marking maybe 2. But this one is a very simple one, right? Error interval. Well, if you know that m is 4.08 to do decimal places, you need to go to that extra decimal place to see what they are. They are really asking you about the range where the numbers round to 4.08, so to 2 decimal places. So this one would be 4.075, and it must include that one, and then 4.085, and you can't include that number because if you round that to 2 decimal places, you go to 4.09. 2 mark. Solving equations depends on what you want to do here, which method you want to show. I would always show your method every single time, even though you may only get your mark for showing the right answer. Always show your method. It is a time for you to show off, to show your understanding to these examiners. All right, so please make sure to do it. So here I'm using the inverse method. So basically I'm inversing until I've got x on one side and a number on the other. So I've inversed and take away 5 over x because it's a negative and I don't like dealing with negatives. Then I'm inversing the 2. So the inverse of positive 2 is negative 2. So 10 take away 2 is 8. 5 over x. I would advise you to put one on top of each other here, but I'm running out of space, so I'm probably going to have to move 2 over here. Then you've got 8x, because I'm multiplying through by the x, is equal to 5, and then I'm dividing through by 8, and I've got an answer of 5 over 8. And you can check now, you can slap that into your original equation. Okay, 5 over 8. Take away, 10 take away 5 over 5 over 8. And it will give you 2, so you know you are correct. Okay, some little things that will make you feel a bit better, especially with these first questions. Make sure that you are checking them. Right? Make sure that you're checking them so that you build up a little bit of confidence. Right then, so here's your chance to do a bit more by yourself. Okay, shop increases the price by 12% to £392. What was the original price? Pause the video, choose the correct answer. Well, hopefully you'll choose the correct answer, and then I'll show you the correct answer. Here we go. It is 350. So what you've done there is 350 multiplied by 1.12, because that's my multiplier for an increase, and it should give you 392. Now, how did I do the other way? Well, I didn't know what 350 was to begin with, but I did know that I multiplied it by 1.12 to get an answer of 392. So other way around, inverse operation, just as we did with solving that equation, right? And of course, that would give you 350. Right then, so those are our basic exam skills. Right, to practice core skills and cover misconceptions. Right then, first thing, algebra. I'm hypothesizing hypothesis, that there will be a lot of algebraic manipulation in your exam tomorrow. So a lot of it will go to that, okay, making sure that you understand the algebraic manipulation. So here we've got factorizing a quadratic equation. Now I can see quadratic equations, we know, well, I hope we all know, are all shaped like this. Not always is it equal to 0, but ax squared plus bx plus c. And what I'm realizing here is that a is greater than 1. So my method slightly changes. So what I do is I go a times c. So a is 3 and c is negative 10. So I now know it's negative 30. And then, of course, b. Well, there's no number in front of the x, but there is a negative, so it has to be negative 1. What I want now is to find two numbers, okay? I want the two numbers to add up to make negative 1, and I want the two numbers to multiply to give me a negative number. Now, I'm looking at this, and if I've got a negative product, I know that one of the numbers has to be positive and one of the numbers has to be negative. I'm seeing a negative sum. That tells me that one number, the biggest number, has to be the negative one. So I'm thinking of two numbers that multiply to give me 30, but there's a gap of 1 between them. And the number I'm thinking of is 5 and 6. Now, one of them has to be negative, and the biggest one has to be negative because the sum has to be negative 1. So I'm going to go for 5, negative 6. Little tricks there, right? What we do then is we partition or split that part of the equation. So I've got 3x squared. Now I know my next step is going to be factorizing. I'm definitely not going to put the 5 beside the 3. Why not? I can only think of 1 as the highest common factor between them. So it's going to be 3x squared, take away 6x. That's handy because 3 goes into 6. Plus 5x, take away 10. Oh, another handy one, 5, 10. Okay. And I have to put it as equal to 0. Right, again, as I said earlier on, split it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factorize this bit here. Right, on the outside, I'm going to go 3x squared and 3x, sorry. And on the inside, it's going to be x, take away 2. And then I can factorize this bit here. So 5 is going to go on the outside, x, take away 2. Great. I know I'm on the right track because these two are exactly the same. Bloop, bloop, exactly the same. So what I can do here is I can factorize again. Well, I'm going to factorize the 3x and the 5 into one bracket, and in the other bracket, I'm going to factorize. And there's always going to be equal to 0. Now, because when you have two pairs of brackets stuck to each other, it means that you're multiplying. And the only way of getting 0 when you multiply is by multiplying, one of the numbers has to be 0. Okay, that means that either 3x plus 5 is equal to 0, or x take away 2 is equal to 0. Okay. That means that 3x is equal to negative 5, x is equal to negative 5 over 3, or x is equal to 2. Okay. Factorize and solve. Well, these are your two answers, and you can check, right? You don't have to think whether you're right or you're wrong. You slap this into your original equation, and if you get 0 out, you know you're right. Okay, always do that when you're solving equations, right, or solving quadratics or what have you. Always put those numbers that you find at the end back in to see if they work. Right then, simultaneous equations. Right, 3 marker. Going back to this one, right, this was a 3 marker as well. What you would get here probably is 1 mark for this, right? 1 mark for the factorization and 1 mark for your answers. Right, sometimes they give 4 marks for that because it's a 4-stepper, but that's where you're looking at your marks. So if you make a mistake somewhere, don't worry. But definitely just don't put the solutions in there, just the solutions. Always show you working out. As I said, you are trying to show off here. That's what the point of an exam is, to show off what you understand. We all make mistakes. I've made a few here today, right? I have. But if we show our working out, and it showed in that question that I did earlier on, right? I made an error in there, but because I did the working out, I was able to correct the error. So it's vital that you check as well. And it's vital that you show you're working out, because if you do make a mistake and you don't spot it, you're still going to get most of the marks because you're showing you know what you're doing. Right then, simultaneous equations. What I'm noticing here is that we don't have the same coefficient of x, we don't have the same coefficient of y. So let me call one 1 and the other one 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply equation 1 by 3, and I'm going to multiply equation 2 by 2. What that does is it gives me the same y coefficient. So I'm going to end up with 6y and negative 6y. Not exactly the same coefficient, but we can use. So 5x becomes 15x. And this one then becomes 2x. So 15x plus 6y is equal to 12. And 2x take away 6y is equal to negative 46. I'm going to call this one 3. I'm going to call this one 4. What I'm going to do then is add them together. If I add 6 and negative 6 together, I get 0. So 3 add 4. And I'm talking about the equations here. What I get is 17x equals to negative 34. Then, of course, I'm solving the equation. Divide through by 17, and I get an answer of negative 2. That's my first answer. When we're solving simultaneous equations, you need an x value and a y value. So what do? So if x is equal to negative 2, then now I choose one of these. I'm going to choose equation 2. And equation 2 is negative 2 take away 3y is equal to negative 23. And then I solve. Adding 2 to both sides, I get negative 3y is equal to negative 21. Now you're thinking to yourself, oh, you've got a negative value here. Doesn't matter, because you're going to divide through. If you're dividing two negatives by each other, you're going to get a positive answer. Then you need to check. How do I check? Well, because I used equation 2 to find y, what I'm going to do now is use equation 1 to check. So 5 times negative 2 plus 2 times 7. Now that would give me negative 10 plus 14. And that would give me 4, which is the answer I was looking for. Right then, we're going into a bit more difficult ones now, which is functions of functions. Right. So the function f of x is equal to 3x take away 4, and the function g of x is equal to 1 over x plus 2. Find f of g of x. So what you have to do here is make sure that you input this into this. So f of g of x would be, well, f of x is 3x take away 4, but instead of x, you're inputting 1 over x plus 2, which would give you 3 over x plus 2 take away 4. Now, you can simplify that even further, but because this is a 2-marker, I wouldn't expect you to do it. Now, the final answer would be negative 4x take away 5 all over x plus 2. What you would have to do is make sure that you have a common denominator, and the common denominator would be x plus 2. So you would put 4x plus 2 all over x plus 2 and then deal with it from there. Right then, find the inverse function of f of x. Now the inverse function. Now, there are ways of doing it. What I do is I pretend, and it has to be pretend, that f of x is equal to y. So y is equal to 3x take away 4. Now, 3x take away 4, if I want the inverse of it, what I'm going to do is rearrange until x is the subject of this formula. So what that means is I'm going to start by y plus 4 is equal to 3x. And then y plus 4 all over 3 is equal to x. So the inverse function, f of x, would be, and instead of y, I'm going to call it x. So it would be that one. Okay, solve now. G of f of x. So we know we're going to have to put f of x instead of g. Right? Or not instead of g, into g. So g of f of x would be 1 over 3x take away 4 plus 2. Move that up there. What you have then is 3x take away 4 plus 2 gives you 3x take away 2. And now it's telling you f of g of x, g of f of x is 1 over 7. So what you do is 1 over 7 equals 1 over 3x take away 2. And what we're seeing here, you could use your balance method, your inverse method, but really what it's saying is that 7 is equal to 3x take away 2. And then you solve this and you find that x has a value of 3. And that's a 1-marker. According to the information that we gathered here, I would have called it a 2-marker, but if it works, it works, okay? But always show every single step of your calculation, right? Every single step. Right then, let's go on to finding the line gradient. When here, that's the shape we've got there. That's not the shape that we're used to. So we want to find the gradient of the line perpendicular to it. Now, perpendicular is at right angle, okay? The first thing I need to do is find the gradient of this line, but I need it to be in this format here. I need it in that shape because we know that m is the gradient. So I rearrange the formula, right? And I rearrange it until I get to y is equal to 4 take away 2 over 3x. Right, I know now that m, and I'm going to call this m1, has a value of negative 2 over 3. Now, what you should remember about perpendicular gradients is that if you've got one gradient and you multiply by the other, so the product of two gradients, they have to be negative 1 if they are perpendicular to each other. So what we've got here is negative 2 over 3 multiplied by m2 is equal to negative 1. And of course, what we're going to do is we're going to divide. So it would be the second gradient would have to be negative 1 all over negative 2 over 3. Now you can do that on your calculator. Straight in, pling, plang, plong, and you would get an answer of 1.5 or 3 over 2. And again, I'm showing every step of my way here. Right, then find the equation of the line that goes through 6, negative 2 with a gradient of negative 4. That means that y is equal to negative 4 over 3x plus c. Now, looks good, doesn't it? We don't have the c. Unless we have the value of c, the y-intercept, we don't have a complete equation. So what we're going to do is we're going to find it by inputting y as negative 2 and x as 6. This is a nice one because 6 divided by 3 is 2. So what you get here is negative 2 is equal to negative 8 plus c. And what you get there is that c has a value of 6. Now, you haven't finished. Find the equation. What you found is the value of c. You haven't found the equation yet. To find the equation, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to put the information into the equation. So y is equal to negative 4 over 3x plus 6. And there's your marks. Okay. Right then. Estimating the mean for the information given to us here. Right, so day works for a weather station. The table shows the information for the temperature of midday for the last 30 days. There they are. Check that. 2 plus 8, 10, plus 13, 23, plus 7, 30. The data is correct, okay? Work out the estimate mean for the temperatures. Right then. That's the information that you're given. My advice is create new columns. This is estimating the mean. You're going to have to find the midpoint. Now, the midpoint is your range divided by 2. So 0 plus 5 divided by 2 is equal to 2.5. The midpoint of this group is 2.5. Now, most people will see now, oh, okay, yeah, right. So this has to be 7.5. And this has to be 12.5. And this has to be 17.5. Ooh, major boo-boo there, people. Major boo-boo. This is one of the mistakes that tend to happen here. The range of this one is different. Okay? The range of that one is different. So you have to make sure that you're getting it right. As it happens, it's not a hard one. What you've got there is 20, because that is the midpoint between 15 and 25. Okay. You don't have to worry about the inequality symbols there. Right, I've called this one f of x because what I'm doing is my frequency multiplied by my midpoint. Right? Frequency multiplied by midpoint, frequency multiplied by midpoint, and frequency multiplied by midpoint. Which would give you, well, you don't really need the grand total there, okay? Because what you're going to do is you are going to find the mean, or you're going to estimate the mean, okay? And to estimate the mean, you find your total of this column right here. So the column is called f of x, so you're going to have the total column of f of x, and then you're going to find the total. This is what this symbol means, right? There is a Greek letter for it, but the real thing that you have to remember is when you see that symbol, it means total, right? So what you've got there is 5 plus 60 plus 162.5 plus 140. All over 30. And pling plong plong into your calculator it goes. And Bob's your uncle. Mary would be your auntie if she ever married Uncle Bob. You've got 12.25 Celsius. Now you can round that, but always show your original answer first. Always show your original answer first. Right, histograms. We are quite certain that histograms will come up. If it doesn't come up in paper 2, it'll definitely come up in paper 3, but we are quite certain that it'll come up in paper 2, to be honest with you. So a group of runners complete a 10K race. The table shows information about their finishing times. There we go, draw histograms, worth 3 marks. Right, remember a histogram is not a bar chart. A histogram, it is the area of your bar that tells you the amount, the frequency. So if you want to find out, and they will give you this information, most of the time they will give you the x-axis. So I've given you the x-axis here, 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, but I don't have any numbers on my y-axis. So what you have to do is you have to find the frequency density, right? You have to find the frequency density here. So when you're doing this, add another column. Doesn't have to be pretty, right? As it happens, because I'm doing this on computer, this can be done prettily, but it doesn't have to be, right? Now, to find your frequency density, you are going to divide your frequency by your range. So this group has a range of 10, this group has a range of 10, this group has a range of 20, this group has a range of 20. Different range sizes. There we go. So we know that these are the numbers that we want to look at in our y-axis. Now, the biggest number I've got here is 2.8. So I'm not going to call this 10. The biggest number probably is going to be 3. Right? So I'm going to have to split this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. Right? Probably 3 is going to be there. If I had one more, I'd probably do it as 3, but 3, 2, 1. There you go, a bit tidier than my chicken scratching writing. Okay. So I know that now these are my heights. So I know that this is going to be, so between 10, well, 10 is going to be about here. I need 1.2. So it's going to be about here. I would expect you to use pencil and paper, okay? So there you are. Now, there will be a second part to that. That's a 3-mark question. That's what they're looking for, right? There will be a second part to this. Estimate the number of people who took more than an hour. Okay, more than an hour would be over here. So 60 minutes, right? So you want to estimate the number of people here. Now, the number of people, your frequency, is going to be the area of that part. So when you're finding the area and it's a rectangle, it's going to be the width, right, which is 10 minutes, times your length, which is 0.5. So 10 times 0.5 is 5. That is our second part of today's learning, which is to practice core skills and cover misconceptions. Be careful when drawing a graph. Make sure that your x-axis and y-axis have a good scale to them. Estimating the mean, make sure that your midpoints are in the right places, things like that. And break your numbers down. Okay, break your problems down into manageable chunks. Right then, for example, this one. Okay, what we've got here is a cylinder, right? And it's got two different measurements. One's in centimeters, one's in meters. Now, a cylindrical tank has radius of 18 centimeters and 1.6 meters. Now, the first thing I notice is that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert one to the other. The water flows in that at a rate of 0.52 liters per minute. Okay, we're dealing with liters. What do I know? Well, I know that 1 liter is equal to 1,000, centimeters cubed. Okay. That means that I'm going to change this to centimeters. So the first thing I'm going to do is 1.6 meters is equal to 160 centimeters. How long does it take the tank to fill? So I need to know the size of the tank. That gives me volume. Now, volume of a cylinder is pi r squared, which is the area of the cross section multiplied by its height or length or depth, whichever you'd like to say here. Right, I'm going to call it height. Right then, slap that into your calculators. So it's pi multiplied by 18 squared multiplied by 160. And it is going to be a big number. It is going to be 160,860.16316. Try to put your answer as much as you can, what you see in your calculator, okay? Now, because I know this, right, what I'm going to try and do is find out how many liters can we fit into that, okay? So, how many liters is going to be that number, 162.16316 divided through by 1,000. Now, even though it tells me to the nearest minute, I'm trying not to round until my final answer. Okay, so 162. I've forgotten something here. Got the 860. So 860. That is not a comma anymore. That becomes a decimal point. And it is liters. Now, I'm not going to, I have rounded here. What you have to do is on your calculator, try to keep that answer going. Okay, try to keep that answer going. Right then. So my flow rate, just going to call it FR here, is equal to 0.52 liters per min. So your time taken is going to be 162.860 divided through by 0.52. Now, that gives you an answer of 113.192, but you wanted to round that to one decimal, or to the nearest minute. So it's going to be 113. Right then, we're coming to algebraic expressions now, right? And this one, I'd really like to show how you deal with this one as a calculator. So the first thing, show that the equation can be rearranged into that. Right, that's my first protocol. So the first thing that I'm going to do is rearrange this. How you do that? Well, you write it out. And then you're showing the steps. This is what they're asking you to do, and this would be worth about 1 mark. Yeah, only 1 mark, but it's showing what you need to do here, okay? So x is equal to 4x take x cubed, sorry, take away 1, and then x would be equal to the cubic root of 4x take away. So you've done the first part, and you've gained a mark. Easy mark. Now, use iteration to x0 equals 1.2 and find your solution to 3 decimal places. Right then, what I would do is create a little table. x0, then you've got 4x0 take away 1, the cube root of that. And so x1 would be, then you've got this. This is where I need to get my calculator out again, okay? But hopefully you'll remember that. Right then. So as you can see, we've still got the calculation from earlier on my calculator, but what we want now is the next one. Right then, so what I do, find my cubic root. Well, I haven't got a cubic root, but I've got an empty space, so I do that. It will be here somewhere, okay? Every calculator is different, but it will be there. And then I've got 4 times 1.2 was my first number, so I'm going to slap that in. Make sure that it's in brackets. Because of BIDMAS, you want to make sure that it's not taking away the 1 first. Take away 1, and you're getting an answer. Got to put the 1 in there, you see? There we go. You've got an answer in there. Now, instead of you having to write that all in again, all you need to do is put this in again. Yes, you're going to have to put it in once more, and I promise you it's going to be once more. Now, if you press Shift and look for the acronym ANS, answer, right? You can use that. Now, I forgot to press the multiplication, so I'm going to have to redo it. There we go. Close the bracket. Take away the 1. I remember to take away the 1 this time. And then enter again. Now, that's all you have to do. Now, just keep pressing enter. And it does it for you automatically. That's why it's handy to have a scientific calculator. So as you can see, it's rounded to 1 decimal place. It would be 1.9 probably. But what we're seeing is a pattern emerging. And you can do this again and again. But once it's locked in to that 4th decimal place, you can stop. As you can see, I've had 2 answers that to 4 decimal places, 1.8608. Why to 4 decimal places when the question asks you for 2? Well, you need it rounded, don't you? So put the answers in here, a couple of them, right? But in the end, what you want is x is equal to 1.86. Now it says 860, but because the next number is 8, it's going to be 861. And you're back with me. Right, during this part, I'll be sharing some exam-specific tips and advice on the screen. I'm also be responding to some last-minute questions that we've had through the sessions via the chat box. Please post your questions using that link that I informed you of at the beginning of our time. You'll find it in the chat box there. So let us get to it. Now, one of the things that you gave me was what I've got was a bit of iteration here. Okay, knowing how to do this. It's a 4-mark question, and you're thinking, oof, it's going to take me a long time to do that. Let me try and show you a bit of a shortcut, okay? Because this is a calculator question. Now, show that that is equivalent to that. Okay, there's no problem there. What you need to do is you just go through the steps, all right? Go through the steps bit by bit. So adding 1, so x cubed take away 4x is equal to take negative 1. Add 4x to both sides, so x cubed. Now, because it's a positive, I'm going to put it in the front there. Take away 1, and then your cubic rooting. 4x take away 1 cubed. All right. So what you've done there is you've got your first mark by showing how it's done. Now, use iteration when x0 is 1.2. Right, this is where my calculator is going to come into play. So here it is. I'll get my calculator up for you so that you can see what I'm doing. Right then, so it is x is equal to 1.2. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just write 1.2 there and press enter. Okay, that gives me that as an answer. Right, the thing I'm going to do is put the cubic root in there. So it's 4, and I'm going to put the 4 times 1.2 in brackets just to make sure. But what I'm going to do here, instead of writing 1.2, I'm going to use the answer function on my calculator. Clunk, just like that. And then it's take away 1. So I put all that into my scientific calculator. If you don't have a scientific calculator, you're going to have to do this again and again and again. Iteration is taking your answer and slapping it back into the original equation. So instead of 1.2 in the next one, you would give me the answer of 1.56, and it's 1.56049071, and it's a bit awkward. It is a bit awkward. But if you don't have a scientific calculator, that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to put all that number in, or you can use the answer. Well, if the button's not there, you can't use it. So what you have to do is you have to just continue doing it step at a time. But if you have got one of these calculators, it's brilliant. It remembers what you need to do. You just press enter again. So that first one is x1. x2 is 1.737125986. x3, x4, x5, x6, x7, x8, x9, x10. And what you see now is that 1.860 is coming up again and again and again and again and again. And if we continue just clicking that, what you see is that it's 1.8608. That's very important that you get to that, because the question actually asked you to do it to, if I'm right, 3 decimal places. So that would give you an answer of x to the power of x10 is equal to 1.86. And because it's 08, there's a 1 after it. Now, what I would do here to show that you know what you're doing is write the answer to x1 in, write the answer to x2 in, and then just get the answer to x and count. So I know that that answer to x10 is that, so I put it in there. Okay, that's a bit of a tip for you right there. So that was one, and it's a bit of a shortcut, that one. Okay, it is a bit of a shortcut for you. Right, another one that's come in is rewriting something by using completing the square. So you remember that thing I told you earlier on, that x take away 3? That's going to come into play here. So what we want is to change this and to put it into this shape right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bit of a cheat. I'm going to say that y is equal to 0. So 0 is equal to 2x squared take away 12 x plus 5. It's not what you're looking for because you want it to that shape, but I'm just going to pretend. Right? Now I'm going to play about with this. I am going to get rid of that 5. I don't like it. Right? Why? Because I can't divide through by 2. I don't like this. It's a bit awkward. I can't divide through by 2 nicely there. So I'm going to get rid of it by moving it to the other side, doing the inverse. What I'm going to do now is I am going to divide through by 2. So 5 over 2, negative 5 over 2 there. X take away 6x, x squared, sorry. Oh, that's a nice one, isn't it? That's a nice one. What do we do? Add 9. So I have to add 9 to one side. I have to add 9 to the other. Right, to keep it balanced. And what I've got there is a perfect square. So you're trying to play about with the algebra until you get a perfect square. Okay, so what you've got there now this becomes 13 over 2. Right, positive because you're adding 9. And this becomes x take away 3 all squared. Now, we don't have it that shape yet. How do I get it to that shape? Well, I need a number outside of my bracket. That's easy. There's a 2 over here. So let's do it. Right? So 13 would be equal to 2 x take away 3 all squared. And I need a number at the end here. Well, that's easy as well. Take away 13 and I've got a number. Now, it's not exactly what I got. But if I remember, I stated that y was equal to 0, and they have got 0 here again. So y would be equal to 2 x take away 3 all squared take away 13. Now, hence states the coordinate of the turning point. Now, the coordinate of the turning point would be negative a, b. Well, negative a is the negative of negative 3, which is 3, and b is negative 13. Right then, I think I've just about got enough time for one more question to go through, and I think the one that I'm going to go with is this one right here. A lot of you have asked for a bit of trig. What I'm noticing is that this is not a right angle triangle, but I do have an angle and 2 sides. So the first thing that I think of straight away is cosine. Now, the cosine rule will also be in the front of your paper, so look for it. Now, what it's telling me here is that I want to find BC, so BC squared would be equal to AB squared plus CA squared. Take away 2 times AB times CA times cos of the angle. And of course, what I can do now is slap in the information, 11 squared plus 8 squared. And again, I am writing these in. You can probably do these all in one go on your calculator. But the thing that when I was doing my homework for this, the thing I found, I had to ask a colleague, is that the right answer? Because my calculator was in radians, which is another way of measuring angles, right? So you've got to make sure that you are in degrees. It's very important, okay, that you are in degrees, because if you're not in degrees, you're going to get a different answer to me. and it's going to sound reasonable. Right. Now, what I found there is that BC squared is equal to 130.61, blah, 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 blah. Leave that into your calculator, right? Because what you want to do now is you want to square root it. So you press the square root button and you press answer. Don't round. Never round until you're right at the end. So it's going to be 11.4 something. And then you put the answer of 11.4 to 3 significant figures. Okay. Well, we have come to the end of the time that we do have together. Thank you all for joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure. It really has. We hope you're walking away feeling a little more confident, a lot more confident. Hopefully it's a lot more confident and prepared for your exam tomorrow. Before you go, make sure to check in the timetable that we've sent in the chat so that you can join in with our next live revision session. There's one in maths in a week's time. Right. So your feedback helps us improve as well. So please take a moment to complete the pinned form in the chat. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a session. And a huge thank you once again for being part of this evening. Really enjoyable. Remember, you've got this. You can do it. Break your problems down into smaller chunks. Best of luck in your exams. We are rooting for you. Keep focused, stay motivated, and believe in what you've learnt. See you next time.